house building. This is where you do jury duty in San Antonio. It's right on the Riverwalk. I think you pay like $6 a day, but you get the day off from work, so that's kind of the only benefit. Honestly, I went to jury duty not too recently, and it wasn't too bad. The cafeteria was a little overpriced. It kind of sucked. I ended up spending more at the cafeteria than I did going to jury duty. But I got out of jury duty because I forgot what I said, but I talked to the lady a few times. She's not pretty, so she's making up excuses to go talk to her. But anyway, I started to go run. She actually denied my, she denied, she was like, yeah, you're way in line. And I was like, alright. But anyway, I ran past this because my lady scared me, so I started sprinting. Which I didn't start sprinting, but I fell. I was doing a little jog, and I fell. And I pretty much just fell, and there's some birds here. I initially got denied at that jury duty, but after talking to her, she eventually, gave me a slot to get out of there by like by noon. That and a few other people. No one special. But anyway, I went to El Chavito, and I started driving towards El Chavito, and to get a torta, and so essentially, it was rated high for tortas. It's not the best torta I've had, I'll tell you that much. The best torta I've had is it's a taqueria in Monterey, I think, by La Cantina or something like that. I will do a video on that eventually, when I have time. But essentially, I'm gonna drive out here to El Chavito. The mini tacos are probably the best I've had in the city so far. Las Piñas is pretty good, a few other spots are pretty good. But the salsa here is just, like, it's just the perfect goosey type of salsa. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, I'm just leaving through traffic. You can see the San Antonio sun is no joke. I can't even see, bro. I just be flying. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, it's just sped up. My car can only go like 60 miles. You notice, like, my check engine light's been on this whole time, but it says my check, tire pressure, but, anyway, you see these little birds looking up there, but, yeah, man, here's El Chavito. It's right here in, like, was it Crossroads or something like that? Right off of 410 by, Burlington Coat Factory. You know what Burlington Coat Factory, you'll find this place. And so it's kind of tucked away, and it's nice. It's got a little drive-thru, but there's also got a place you can sit down shaded. I should have taken a picture of that. And some people were chilling out there. It looked like some locals that had lived in this area probably knew about it. I don't live in this area. I actually live probably on the west side. Currently, I'm not from here, but so I got a bunch of meat. It's like meat sack or sauce pan. This type of seasoning and this layer here. So I'm gonna see what's up. So I'm also able to get some Mexican soda. Pretty nice. The meat on is really good. I got everything I need. They put the cilantro and onions on there too as well, so all I gotta do is here, just pour this all on there. Yummy. Yes, sir. You already know. This place was top rated here, and it already looks fucking smacking. So I'll go ahead and get in this and squeeze everything there. The tortilla was pretty good dressed. This meat's got salsa, whatever the sauce is spicy as hell. Really good though, I'll tell you that much. I still have my fridge, just take some I'd get some like fries or something, I'll get like a chicken nugget in there occasionally. And so essentially, man, yeah, dude, pretty good torta. The Monterey torta is pretty good because they put the cheese on it. It might not be a traditional Mexican torta. I've never been to Mexico. I've been to Cancun and Playa del Carmen and Cozumel before, but I ain't never been to like hardcore Mexico. So I really do want to visit because the first one I want to go to is like Monterrey in Mexico City. And then from there I'll branch out. But it's just because those are the closest to Santa Clara, just south. I know like most of San Diego are from Monterrey or and most people from California I think are from like Tijuana and stuff like that. Don't quote me on that. Obviously this is like obviously biased for just the people behind me. But yeah, man, I just head home and the grind continues, bro. I essentially just head back to the cribbo, and I'm about to just eat these tacos, and this torta. The tacos, it's hot as hell, man. The little meat sauces in the torta was ridiculous. But yeah, man, I just got in the lab. I started editing videos. I started doing what I do. Getting in the lab here. You know what I'm saying? King Alert. Jimmy Nugget mode. Oh shit. Yeah, but yeah, man, honestly, now that I've gone through like the glitz and glamour of the Battle of the Alamo, the mission San Antonio de Valero, who was founded originally in 718 by a dude named Fray Antonio de Oliveras. He was a Spanish dude. He arrived in San Antonio with a bunch of Native American converts. Essentially, these were like you can imagine like in Fallout. Or like in Kenshi, a bunch of dudes who were like following like a cult in the game, like kind of like just imagine like Caesar from Fallout. Just imagine that. In Fallout New Vegas, and so Caesar's Legion. So just imagine that. So they had a bunch of Native American converts from the mission San Antonio Francisco Solano near San Juan Batista on the Rio Grande, that's further south. And essentially, he convinced these Native Americans to build these monuments for Jesus. Like, no joke, on some like pyramid pharaohs. No, I'm not joking. Like, that's exactly, essentially it happened. Like, there was slavery, and then there was essentially this. So essentially, on some like Caesar's legend, they would build all these complexes for these conquistadors and for these missionaries, these world missionaries. And so the Alamo would start in 1718, and originally the settlement would start, and they would eventually finish that construction, or the converts, the new Jesus converts, would finish that construction in the name of Jesus around 1728, 1730. And just to put in perspective let you know exactly what was going on at that time. Well, in 1718, San Antonio would be founded, the city of New Orleans would be founded, Blackbeard and the Queen Anne's Revenge crew would lead a blockade on South Carolina for an entire week, literally. And so, yeah, the Golden Age of piracy was going on here, and then the Tongway earthquake would also occur this year, killing 70,000 people in China. Like, Jesus. 1718, the U.S. San Antonio was founded. The Treaty of Passarowitz within the Austro-Turkish War as well. Yeah, in 1718, the Battle of Passaro, the Battle of Cape Fear River, the Battle of the Salween River would take place. And then the Mughal Empire was still around with the Emperor Farrukh Sihar or something like that. And then that year as well, Blackbeard and Stede Bonnet would also later be killed in America. And the Triple Alliance, the Quadruple. So yeah, the next day I pulled up to the Spanish Governor's Palace because then I could get inside and this, look at the Conquistador statue one more time. And people have like a football team in the Conquistadors or something like that, but the Spanish Villa, this house reminds me of the Fistful of Dollars, or like the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's like a Spanish villa architecture. I'll put something up here real quick. From Fistful of Dollars, and Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but you see the Spanish architecture in the back? They're just kind of like the Southwest vibe. It's not imagine saying, no, in the 1700s, obviously they didn't have guns like this, they would have muskets and Indians and stuff like that, but I just imagine the architecture is pretty much consistent throughout the Southwest with the Spanish architecture. And like they kind of mix with like the Indian type vibe. So you have like Indian and Spanish architecture mixed in one, and kind of like that Spanish architecture. And so you see here, you have this like dwelling. This reminds me of the Spanish villa, the Spanish governor's palace that I'm out here right now. And then you see, I think this guy was the bad in the bad, the ugly. But yeah, this guy, and then just walking through this alley is just like the alleys that I'm walking through in the Spanish governor's palace that was built in 1749. And you just get this like cool, they just don't make houses like this in San Antonio anymore, unfortunately. And yeah, I just imagine back then you just had dudes running around like Fallout, like literally like the game Fallout, or like some of them like Red Dead, just like immoral dudes, as well as moral dudes, like Davy Crockett, James Bowie characters. They also were okay with slavery though, so like these guys were not that great. You also had Santa Annas, and you had Pancho Villas and stuff like that. So like, this, I just love that, like, kind of like, Western culture. I kind of grew up on these films, and this is what every time I come here, I've been to the Spanish Governor's Palace 3 times. Every time I come here, it reminds me of this movie. This scene specifically, in this movie. When they start talking, I'll stop talking, but, this scene in the movie is exactly when I walk to the Spanish Governor's Palace, this is exactly the vibe I pick up with it. When I'm just walking through this, like, almost, like, this would have been back in, like, almost like a mansion, or a cool villa, it was a governor's palace, but yeah, this guy's a bounty hunter in the movie, so he's had some like Fallout vibes. So yeah, man, Walk the Race just reminds me of this that scene from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But this was built in 1749, and just to kind of put it in perspective, I know the 1718 thing, but yeah, essentially from 1718 to 1749, these missions along with the Spanish governor's palace would be built here in San Antonio. As the Spanish Commonwealth was being built out on the west coast, the French Commonwealth was being built from the New Orleans all the way up to Michigan and Canada, and then you also had the English Commonwealth and the famous 13 colonies. But to kind of explain how this was got here, there was a long unknown war between the Apaches and the Spanish over San Antonio. So in 1718, essentially I'll go ahead and put a little article up here real quick. So yeah, when the Spanish came with their conference, the Apache and Comanche saw them as easy prey in the area, and just really saw them as easy licks and treated them as such. You gotta think, in the 1600s, Hernan Cortez and a few other Spanish conquistadors had taken over Mexico, Brazil, and a few other things. But North America, the French, the English, and the Spanish were still fighting Indians for a long time. All the way up really until the 1800s. But yeah, no, this is some cool like Spanish artwork there from I'm guessing it's old. But you can see it's got a lot of like really open doors. I'm thinking that was the Spanish governor that was here. That there's a lady there in front of there. I think I get a good shot at him soon here. But yeah, just kind of looking at some of this old art. But yeah, let me keep explaining. Oh, this is, yeah, I get this good shot of but kind of explaining, essentially the Spanish and the Apaches bought a good aircraft here. You can see how they built it to kind of get good air in. But the Spanish and the natives would be fighting over San Antonio and the surrounding areas from across Texas for a while. And the Spanish were so stressed in, they were mostly focused on Mexico, so but Spain had to worry about the French and the English as well as like the Cuba and other holdings like the Philippines and stuff like that across the world. But the Apaches would attack, and imagine you being stationed as a Spanish soldier on this far hot outpost in, San Antonio. It wasn't like how Texas is today, I'll tell you that much. It was essentially like prehistoric Texas, or it had been Texas before it was Texas, live on oil. And so essentially, you would have been stationed out here, fighting in this like long forgotten battle, to found this city. And this ongoing settlement would have gone through these battles, much like how the battles would have gone through on the East Coast for Jamestown and Plymouth and stuff like that, as well as the French settlements. But the French had a better time at trading with the natives. For the Spanish, they would have had not very much to trade on their end, and the natives saw them as easy licks, and they were so stretched thin, it would have been just a hard fight to fight. Most of them would have just stayed in their missions and just tried to put up a good defense. This would have been a very hard posting to be a soldier at, I'll tell you that much. That's why the governor's palace, it took all the way until 1749 to get built, even though the settlement was established in 1718. This is really, that picture right there really might have been the good, the bad, and the ugly, but yeah, it would have been a really hard settlement to really hold down. They eventually buried the hatchet. This would essentially only happen after the Spanish would raise an army and bring that army down. We'll bring that army up to San Antonio from Mexico, to pretty much deal with the Apaches and bolster their defense in Texas. But they had a lot of stuff to deal with the French and the English as well, so I thought they had a lot of it to spare. And all they did was pretty much get in a fight, and the Comanches, they pretty much got into just a stalemate, and they agreed to just not fight each other, and the Comanche and the Apaches were just essentially allowed to still roam around, be like, do whatever they wanted, and they weren't subjugated like the Aztecs or the Mayans or anything like that. To some degree, they had a lot more freedom and autonomy to do what they wanted. And even then, they were still around after the Mexican Revolution happened. They fought with the Mexican forces as well as the American and Texas forces. I think the Apaches I mentioned earlier had burned down old Dewitt's establishment when he had built his colony later on in Upper Austin. So they would stay, the Comanche and Apache would stay around for a very long time, and by no means would be defeated by the Spanish. And as you can see, this map right here shows you all the Native American tribes, and the Native American tribe of Texas would have been the Apache or Comanches. So yeah, I'm just walking through the Spanish village. So during the 30s and 40s of the 1700s and 1730s, 1720s, the Spanish and the Apaches would essentially just go back to back, in trading blows. Yeah, man, throughout the Americas at this time, or North America at this time, you would have had a constant war. You would have had the 7 Years' War was coming up. On top of that, you had the Iroquois Confederacy, you had Cherokee, you had multiple other native contingencies, along with like the colonial powers entering their political powers. So there were so many political entities on the board here in North America at this time. It was almost ridiculous, and so all these political entities, including the Native Americans, were competing, and so you just gotta imagine the amount of hoopla that was going on here. And so you just had Comanche in the south, the Spanish had to deal with the Apache and Comanche raids, and eventually they would just make a peace deal with them. In the French and Indian War up north, they would make allies with them, and different native groups would join different sides, and they kind of get shown in like The Last Mohicans and a few other kind of those type of period movies. And so, yeah, during this time period, it was a hectic time in North America. There was no United States of America. It was just Spain, France, and England of what they said they were. And then all the Native American entities. It was like total anarchy. And you just gotta imagine living through this time period in America would have been absolutely insane. It would have been tough, rough and tough. There's no 911, and a lot of these fights were musket duels before the repeater rifle and the revolver. So this is a musket duel fight you have to reload the musket. I mean, these would have been absolutely terrifying fights. And you had to run the gauntlet of possibly getting scalped. And I don't think that the Apaches and Comanches maybe scalped the Spanish. I don't know how that would have worked in the 1700s. I know that the Spanish garrisons were a little bit stronger, and they would have just stayed in their missions. And a few garrisons would actually be stationed in Texas during the Mexican Revolution. And also, like, just throughout history, they would station different garrisons throughout these missions in Texas. So there was always like a contingency of like a few hundred Spanish troops, and so they were always able to kind of hold their own against these Comanches. And however, the Comanches were able to raid and get away with whatever they needed. So they were able to steal horses, steal whatever they needed. So a lot of like the horses that you see in the Wild West, they would have stolen from the Spanish, because the Spanish would have brought the horses to the plains. And then when you see these plain Indians riding these horses, a lot of them stole those horses from the Spanish. So you gotta imagine during this time, just a mass amount of horse theft, and commercial loss that would have brought, and then the commercial benefit that would have brought for the Comanches and Apaches and different plain Indians who wouldn't have had that transportation or access to domesticated animals before then. So very, very interesting. Eventually, that would come into a peace treaty in 1749 where the Comanches and Apaches would make a peace treaty with the Spanish, and I'm assuming just because they could probably get easy access to the horses and make their trades with the French and Spanish and do whatever they needed to do. These weren't individuals. But yeah, walk through the Spanish governor's house, you just kind of get a little bit of glimpse of history of what it would have been like. I don't think we had that many Texas governors that were under Spain before it got flipped over to the Mexican side. And so, yeah, man, this little Spanish war, it truthfully would have been built on indigenous labor. And then the way that how that would have worked is essentially wherever the Spanish came in contact with native groups they didn't like, or where they just came in contact, they would essentially just get people to work for Jesus. Like, hey man, Jesus needs you. And so, essentially these people were stuck at church. Like, imagine being stuck at church 24/7. I won't go into detail about how that would have been when I go to the missions. But yeah, man, like, this is essentially this would have been like the courtyard here. You really get like the good, the bad, and the ugly vibe here with a little Tatooine, or Tatooine from Star Wars vibe, with like the way that the houses are built, and it's kind of like the open courtyard vibe. I really do like the Spanish architecture here. I really wish that like San Antonio would embrace this type of architecture just a little bit more, kind of like Miami does, or how LA does, and just kind of make the city look a lot more Spanish, or native, because, you know, I just don't like the suburban vibe of just regular housing. But, you know, this would have been like the pinnacle of, I guess, like a mansion back then. And you would have workers and stuff like that around here. And I went to the restroom to kind of get you the vibe, to show you what it is. They had the cool wooden door. I don't know if it was an original wooden door from the 1700s, but very, very cool. And I zoomed in on this guy working here. But yeah, I kind of gave you this perspective of as to what was going on in the world at 1749 when this was built. In 1749, the year that the French governor's palace was built, the wreck of the HMS Narwhal would happen, in which 500 members would die. Then the War of the Austrian Succession would have ended just a year earlier, just kind of put that in historical perspective. The Ohio Company would have been just founded about 2 years earlier as well, a major catalyst to the American Revolution and 7 Years' War. The 1749 Muslim slave revolt in Malta would happen as well this year, as well as the Carnatic Wars were going on during this time period as well, along with the Battle of Amber during that Carnatic War period. So yeah, man, the Spanish governor's palace, along with the mission complex in San Antonio, ranges from like that 1718 to 1749 period. It's very interesting. They would have just built this San Antonio up from 1718 to 1749, culminating in this building here. Pretty much all the indigenous labor as well as the missionaries and conquistador system. And this kind of just shows you the kitchen, what that would have been like. Obviously, I doubt the Spanish governor was cooking his own meals. Dude, this is those stairs. I went up those stairs when I was a kid. I remember vividly walking up the stairs. I remember them being very steep. But when I walked up them as an adult, it wasn't as eventful. But I remember, like, going on a field trip, I don't remember anything about the Spanish governor's palace or that field trip from when I was a kid. But I remember walking up these stairs very vividly. Like, I can remember these red brick stairs very, very much. Usually I walk up into that building and kind of like hang out, but it looks like they're using it for storage. But you know, back then I guess having a two-story house would have been kind of, epic. And so walking up there was kind of cool. They had a lot of, like, I guess, relics and stuff up there that were hiding away and stuff. I couldn't go up there, but I remember walking up there as a kid, like literally, like on a field trip when I was like 6 or 5. And just, it's just like seared in my memory, those steps. But yeah, I've been here before, and this is a very cool part of San Antonio, and that's where the video ends. So yeah, man, I feel like I did a good job of explaining the history, before, like, the famous, Alamo, battle, as well as, like, the Spanish history and how San Antonio was originally founded, and how, the Spanish and Comanches and Apaches would have fought over this land hundreds of years ago until 1749. But yeah, this next place I'm going to is Mission Concepcion. This one's actually one of the cool, one of the better ones, because you can actually see some of the original paint, so you can kind of get a glimpse of what it would originally look like 250 plus years ago. Pretty insane to walk into these places. But essentially,